Hello and welcome to another Demis Hellen tutorial. This video we're going to look at percussion, and in percussion in trance I tend to use more the mids and uppers area, whereas if you house music or tech trance you're going to use a lot low percussion, low end percussion that adds to the rhythm and bounce and feel of the track. But in this case I just want it there to support and just keep the pace going when certain things fall out of place. So like when the bass disappears in the drop and synths and all that, that kind of keeps it going, and it's more obvious as it tails off. So in this particular track, which is on screen now, it's the Trance build that I did last year. Also in the description, if you can't for some reason click on the card there. So what's happening here is we've got a lot of things going on. We've got this going into a percussion bus and all this. The hats going to the percussion bus, they're going to the percussion bus. So they all go through this one where the main processing is done. And in particular, you probably want a bit of a fast compression on there to control it all and gel it all together. Probably use some parallel compression to glue it and just gel it all together. But I'm just going to go through quickly on what has happened in this track to give you a good idea. Unfortunately the kick drum is missing out of this track, but you get the idea of how it sounds in context. It's just literally there to pace. Okay, so let's solo the percussion again. So we'll start with this hat loop here. So at the moment the hat loop has a flanger on it, and you can see the rate there, and then I've give it a very gentle bit of mix on there, midway feedback on there, just to give the track a little bit more movement, the actual loop, instead of it just being kind of centered down the middle and kind of mono sounding. This is giving it that little bit of movement, making it sound more energetic than it actually is. And then we move on to EQ, and you can see I've removed the low detail and I've kept the mids to uppers going and just added those little bits of control in there. And so it just gives that a little bit more control over it. And that's all I've done for that one, because everything else gets done in the bus. So here we have the extra hats, so you can hear what those bits were contributing. So if we take a look at what's going on here. Right, so I've rolled it off quite substantially there, so we're just literally focusing on the high detail and then just control it with a shelf. So you can see I'm doing very minimal edits here because I want to keep their original sound. Here I've used a very fast attack compression, use the classic style, so it's just classic compression. You can use any compressor to achieve this. And then I've just tailored the ratio and the thresholds. The ratio, I wanted it sort of midway dramatic, and then just control it with that threshold just to give it a little bit more control. It helps the notes to sound a little bit more transient. Sounds very smooth there, and then it's got a bit more bite. So it's just giving them a little bit more feeling in the track. Looking at the glitch effects here. Okay, so there's the glitch effects. I was struggling to hear them. It's been a while since I've looked at this project. Again, rolled off, controlled, just to give it that continuity across the board. There's a lot of low detail in there that I didn't want. So you can hear it there. So it's all just contributing to the final overall sound. And then finally, did we have the clap here? So the clap is going through a series of different things. So first of all, compression. I've used a preset here from the drum section, snare, and then snare snap 03, and then just tweaked it to sound. What this is doing is it's just letting the attack be a bit slower. So it's letting that initial transient through. It's not smashing that transient down with the compression here because the threshold's quite high. And then an average release to suit the sound. It returns to 0 just before it starts again, and that's it. Just tweak the preset, so don't be afraid to use presets. It does what it usually says, so like snare, snap, and there'll be different settings of snap there, nice and thick, crunchy, solid, nice and thick. It's there for depending on what track you're making. So that's the compression, just to control the clap. So let's just remove it and hear what it sounds like. So you can see it's boosting the volume of the sound and the thickness of the clap, enhancing the tail of the clap, and it's also adding a bit more snap. Okay, moving on to the next one. Again, remove the low detail, control this section here. Sounded a bit too vicious in the mix when it was put into context, so it's just a little bit controlling with EQ there. And then for some reason I have another Pro Q here. I think it might have been originally automated, possibly still is. And then finally we're going to look at the bus. So I don't want to overcomplicate things here, and this is how it should be, just doing it to how the sound needs to be. So there's a lot of transient detail in here, so the compressor comes into play, and as you can see I've done a default preset here, so I've set it to bus because we're gelling it together, and I've set the ratio fairly low, so you could just class that as 2:1, and then I've just tailored the threshold to kind of achieve a -3 dB gain, so I know that them transients are definitely being captured. And then it's got a very fast attack, and then a medium release to, well, I say medium, sort of a very quick release there to compensate for the volume so it doesn't sound compressed. We wanted it to sound see-through. So let's just remove it and see what it sounds like. So you lose that transient detail. You can hear the hats aren't coming through as nice, and the clap's not as sharp. Let's listen again. It's very subtle. You'll need headphones for it really. The knee's set to hard as well, so it's kind of instant compression as soon as it hits that area here. As you can see, if we soften it down, makes it nice and curved, more transient. So that's just to bring it under control. It's not actually squashing anything down, doing anything major. Then I just recontrol it because we've boosted some of the frequencies, so I've just removed them again and controlled using a little bit of mid and side here. So I've reduced the side detail here, and it looks like I increased the side detail here at some point, which I think it should be still there. And then just controlled some of those highs there. And then we move on to the next one. So it goes through a parallel glue, and as you can see this is very, very minimal. It's not even 1 dB, but it's just catching a few of those peaks and just gelling it finally together. I wanted to make sure everything was sitting nicely. As you can see, I'm not overusing this compression, and this is a preset here, MS mid and side parallel glue. It works wonders, especially in the final mix. If we listen to it as it's off, it'll be very, very subtle. But you can hear how the clap changes. And the crispness of the hats that are playing that kind of 16th rhythm. Okay, so it's adding that detail in there, which we need, but instead of just turning it up, use a bit of compression to kind of boost the lower sounds and give them a bit of room. Alright, so next up we have this plugin from SoundSpot. To be honest, I was just using it to see how it sounded, and the result was nice. So this is helping Percussion. I think I got it free or for £1 at Christmas, whatever it were. Got a few different plugins. So you can hear the transients are a little bit more defined when I turn this back on. Ever so slightly, I can just hear it because I know what it's doing. But just to give it that little bit more of an edge. So it's all down to personal preference. You could easily just skip that section and not have that in there. But it's more just, I know what it's done. It's a very subtle difference, just like the compression here. And finally, we have the fat maker. There you go. So without that on, I'd cut a lot away, but I knew at the end of the chain I was going to add in this because it's a fat maker. It's making everything sound a little bit more saturated rather than just boosting volumes, and just boosting the high frequencies here, a little bit of the low mid and some of the low frequency there, just to bring back a little bit of warmth back into it. It really gives that edge on the top. So as long as you have in mind the end step, you're always going to achieve a nice sound. So it doesn't matter how much you cut away during the first stages here. As you can see, I do some quite drastic stuff. So yeah, cutting away here, cutting the side detail. I've cut a lot of the high detail there, bringing it under control, so when I'm adding all the other effects in, I'm not just boosting and boosting and boosting the volume. I'm keeping an eye on what's going on, and then I just restore it to how it was before, just using a bit of the saturation here. Usually at this stage I'd probably use FabFilter Saturn, but I thought on this occasion we'll use Fat Makers because it achieves better results. So all in all, for percussion, you need to look more so at the transient side of things. You need to make sure that everything that you're doing is going to compensate and work together in context in the rest of the mix. So if we remove all this processing here for the percussion, it loses all its detail. There's no sparkle, it doesn't cut through when all the other instruments come in, but it's just there to support. It's more of a background thing. Some tracks it's up front, so if you're doing tech trance, it's going to be more up front with the percussion, and whereas melodic / uplifting trances, which is the kind of genre I sit in, I like it to be more supportive than central in the mix. So that is a look at the percussion in this track. This track is nearing completion. It's been a while to get this one out. I need to release it. So there is a 4 or 5 track EP that will be coming out soon. I've got all the tracks lined up ready. So I'll do a video on the tracks that are going to be coming out, and I'll probably put it on Facebook rather than YouTube. So you can go and see if you want to actually buy it, I suppose, over at Apple Music, and I think it's going to be on Spotify, blah-de-blah, maybe possibly Beatport, I can't remember, but it's all going to be there, and it's going to be most of the tracks that I've shown in videos as well. So thank you for watching. If you liked it, follow me on the socials, leave me a comment, and more importantly, if you haven't already, subscribe, because YouTube, as you know, has changed the rules and the watch time needs to go up and stuff like that. So I'm putting more effort into these videos, and just hitting that subscribe button does help that little bit more, and the interactions. Plus, it lets me know what you guys want to see, and this is how this video came about. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.